My name is Tawnee Wakefield, and I'm here with my colleagues.
Hi, I'm Tiffani Templeton.
Hi, I'm Tim Dombrowski.
And you may notice that this presentation is in student-paced because, as you indicated on the text survey you completed last week, only about half of you utilize student-paced slideshows. Additionally, we found that 90% of you use teacher-paced slideshows as the primary means of direct instruction in your classroom. You were the tour guide teacher. While this is not necessarily bad practice, we know it is certainly not the best. Furthermore, 90% use teacher-paced slideshows for direct instruction for at least 15 minutes each day. Given our rotating block schedule, this signifies an hour a week of teacher-paced slideshows. But before we move along in our discussion, please type out 2 reasons why you use teacher-paced slideshows for direct instruction. If we know it's boring and we know differentiation, student choice, and critical thinking are invaluable in our practice, why are we still living in 2008? Because you are all incredibly accomplished, caring, and passionate teachers. And after you've added your 2 comments, please feel free to move to the next slide. I've also included some of your quotes that we will be addressing later. These are common threads that we saw in the text survey that you completed. All right, so good teaching. What is good teaching? In the 21st century classroom, education is an exciting juncture where technology can be used in meaningful ways. In our research, we will explore the flipped classroom model as methodology for equitable participation and engagement for diverse learners. And in this PD, we hope to reimagine a learning environment that supports students in exploring new modalities of education that encourages discovery, autonomy, and equitable access to resources and technology. Here's some of the ways that we know teachers are using direct instruction, and we know it's slightly problematic. What other potential problems could you think of for teachers who use solely teacher-paced slideshows for whole class instruction? Or feel free to offer a challenge to this presupposition. Let's face it, our students are way more tech savvy than we give them credit for. But because the applications they use are different than the ones purchased by our district, we often limit their technology use, stifling their creativity. TikTok is a perfect example, and it's one that truly amazes me because my freshman students this year have the same enthusiasm for the platform that my freshman students did 4 years ago. When students use TikTok, they are strategic, collaborative, and artistic. Moreover, 65% of our students reported in their tech survey that they use TikTok on a weekly basis. WeVideo and Soundtrap, which are tech tools at our site that would allow students to design and edit videos and create podcasts in a similar fashion, have been used by only 20% of our students. And that's not on a weekly basis. That is the total percent of students on our campus who have ever reported using these applications. Screencastify was a bit higher, with 50% of students stating that they felt comfortable or very comfortable using this software. This aligns with our enrollment in career and technical pathways, of which only 25% of our students on our campus complete, which actually lead towards the degree in that pathway. And less than 1% of our English learning students even have access to these technical electives. For other underserved student groups, such as for our African American, Hispanic, and Latino learners, they are also not taking these electives. They are often in credit recovery and other classes that bar them from participation and building this technology knowledge. So 80% of our students reported in the tech survey as well that their parents have limited to hardly any experience in computer processing applications, video and audio software, and technological programs that are prominent in the workforce. Many of our students even graduated from our high school, and the circle of technology and equity has not been ameliorated. Looking at parent and guardian responses, you can see that 83% said a 3 or above in their comfort level when given videos and teacher-paced slideshows, or excuse me, student-paced slideshows with video instructions from the teacher that they can work with their student on at home, that they would feel comfortable with it, versus 44 who presented or reported a 3 or above with only written instructions. And here's just a quick example of what that would look like, where you have slides and videos embedded for each slide and tasks for the students to complete, which they can do in their native language or their home language with their families.
So, with all this technology, why do we still have a job? Because every student is different and nobody knows our students quite like we do. In order to properly serve our students, we got to know who our students are. At this school, over 70% of our students are economically disadvantaged. We've got almost 13% of the school classified as emergent bilingual. Over 16% or about 16% of students with diagnosed disabilities, which also means that there's quite a few out there with undiagnosed disabilities, whether it be learning, physical, visual, a small portion of foster youth, and a significant portion of almost 9% of our students who are homeless. Now, why does this matter? What does this do for us? When we look at the current model of teacher-paced slideshows and teacher-directed learning, the current model is inequitable. When we try to apply a one-size-fits-all model, what we end up with is a model that teaches to the theoretical average student or the dominant culture. And the data shows that this has a deleterious effect on members of cultures and groups that are not that average student or the dominant culture. When we look at the data here that Bancroft has for his traditional course, you can see that white and Asian students and students of higher socioeconomic status score on average considerably higher than those of other ethnicities or other socioeconomic statuses. So to fix this, we need to find a way to give choice, a way to speak to all of the students and not just the ones of our largest groups. So if you go to the next slide, some of the things that our population of students needs to succeed is teacher-placed slideshows. While teacher-placed slideshows are not obsolete in education, using them as a daily tool for direct instruction does not seem to be the most equitable approach. Rather, given the research on flipped classrooms and technology available for teachers and students, there may be actionable improvements to this practice. One of the most significant researched qualities of a good education that is effective is teacher clarity. Teacher clarity is one of the easiest or the most effective ways for students to advance. By creating short, concise screencasts, teachers can be clear, they can plan out what they're saying, they can speak clearly, build in linguistic scaffolds so that even if the teacher is being incredibly clear, if it's a language that isn't particularly well understood by the student, you're not being clear. students are able to slow, speed up, pause the direct instruction, allowing for students with exceptionalities dealing with processing time or languages to take their time and chunk up the instruction as needed, while other students are free to play it through at the speed that they wish. By being able to represent, or by being able to take our meaning-making section of the class into the class, we can support our students by giving them more choices of representation and production rather than railroading them to that one way of doing things. So, how is the status quo failing our students? One-size-fits-all pacing is leaving certain students bored, disengaged, and others swamped and overwhelmed. It's very difficult to accommodate for linguistic processing, visual and audio scaffolding in real time. So we really end up either teaching to one end of the spectrum or the other, or the imagined middle student. And then finally, limited amounts of time in class makes it very difficult for us to support great amounts of freedom and choice if we're taking all of our in-class time to give direct discussion rather than to conference and meet. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tim. So now we're going to move forward with a detail of current technology or protocol in standard classrooms. So when looking at the current popular teaching protocol, educators are still heavily dependent on teacher-led instructional delivery models that utilize passive learning with tools such as PowerPoint, Google Slides, Pear Deck, and other similar modalities. Taking into consideration available technologies and research-based strategies, a question that our team asks is this the best way to support the diversity of our students' learning needs? Next slide, please. Thank you. Actionable steps for improvement. So now we turn to you, our esteemed colleagues, and ask you to share some ideas about flipping your classroom. Please share your response on the Pear Deck slide. All right, we'll return to those responses at a later point. So moving forward, we are looking at student-centered learning practices of the flipped learning model. And with this, effective strategies utilized in inverted classroom models, also known as flipped classrooms, focus best practices on learner-centered teaching methods rooted in theories of constructivism and social learning theory, and favor student-driven activities such as discussions, group projects, and problem-based learning. Research from Yoon et al. Demonstrates students experienced a greater sense of satisfaction with the course, enhancement of personal achievement, and higher instances of self-efficacy. Interestingly, though, no significant difference in academic performance was demonstrated with flipped learning in this particular brand of research. However, in the research of Bancroft and his colleagues, there was a significant increase in student academic performance among students who are academically disadvantaged. Students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, as well as African American and Hispanic students, as indicated by the blue bar graph at the bottom of the slide. So moreover, on this slide, touching upon useful teaching strategies, the 3P model serves as a theoretical framework that explains learning outcomes in a flipped classroom. The student's learning process is segmented into stages: presage, process, and product. What is wonderful about this framework is the inclusivity it offers learners. The 3P framework can be applied across age groups, cultures, and learning environments. Before learning can occur, a baseline of assessing students' capital, prior knowledge, and motivation is established before moving into the presage stage, wherein teachers provide context for learning. Next, the process stage refers to learning activities, and The product stage refers to the qualitative and quantitative learning outcomes of students. The research of Yoon and his colleagues also speaks about the importance of individual determination in students, represented as grit, as well as the importance that the teacher support offers students with pathways to success in learning environments. Ideally, we'll see that the teacher support is defined as supporting students to arrive at their own outcomes through guidance and autonomy. Now we will look at the socio-emotional benefits of the flipped learning model, which has a lot of interesting findings. So through our research, we have learned about the socio-emotional benefits of students learning in a flipped classroom environment compared to traditional classroom structures. Within a typical classroom structure that is teacher-paced, student engagement and participation decreases significantly. According to the research of Zhang, Gomez, and Canada, flipped learning model environments contribute to higher instances of student autonomy and self-confidence as learners, as well as increased rates of collaboration among peers, which is what we want to see with our students in the classroom. This supports a healthy classroom environment by creating a classroom with more student independence. Now, adding on to that, we have some very interesting research by Watson and Wiggin. And in their research study at an all African American school, findings show the school is called EBA. EBA encourages classroom pedagogy that neutralizes power dynamics between students and teachers. Instead, students and teachers are considered family. So moving on with that class family dynamic is incredibly helpful for students. Hopkins and Evans Winters found that for Black students, having additional support in school increased the student's sense of belonging. This culture of learning and support is also found at EBA through the personalized interactions with students. As Jason Garnett and Opal suggested, students at EBA describe teachers as teaching at their pace and not rushing ahead. This individualized attention was associated with teacher care and EBA's positive learning environment. At the same time, these students describe their education as rigorous and advanced. What is significant about this research is that students report greater instances of success by enjoying inclusivity in their schools. All right, so we will be moving on now to access to technology. Oh, I'm sorry, actionable steps for improvement, how to create a flipped classroom. So while traditional methods of teaching have students completing homework during their time away from school, flipped learning asserts having students complete the preparatory materials in advance of class time so that class time can be devoted to more engaging practices and students can make the most of their time and resources. It is prudent for districts and teachers to ensure students have equitable access to technology as well as resources, and teachers should provide an overview when they are structuring this flipped classroom on how to move forward with the class as a, for the students. And they really do need to invest the time in setting up the structure. Additionally, teachers should offer students flexibility to work at their own pace, as well as opportunities to get individualized support from their teachers when needed. Thank you.
And here we've just composed some additional resources that are valuable, worth your time, videos to get started, and resources to help you. Of course, there are other questions that you posed in your tech surveys, as well as throughout this slideshow. We loved hearing your questions. So a few of them that we just want to address. What can be done to offset the added workload of flipping my classroom? What resources are available at our school site to assist teachers in flipping our classrooms? And how can we best mitigate issues of equity among students' access to technology needed to participate in a flipped classroom? And let us reiterate, self-paced learning does not mean self-taught. So we're still providing those supports. So that was another common thread in the questions that we were seeing. So in addressing that first question, when we eliminate this practice for whole class instruction, we're also eliminating the time that you're spending performing on stage with this encore every 55 minutes or every hour and a half. And furthermore, our district initiative for PLCs and co-creating lessons can be fulfilled through this process, where we've had groups of teachers have, a great amount of success working in teams to create units and sharing their videos with each other, because even though it might not be the teacher on record giving that direct instruction to them, it's building, again, as Ms. Templeton had said, that family environment that our students crave, having that inclusivity. In addressing that second question, having resource teams, we have one-to-one meetings with our tech TOSAs. We have our shared Google Drive with informational videos, resources for you. And we also want to iterate that teachers should work with students and families to determine the best option for them when considering the limitations of classroom tech. So we can offer differentiation, extend grace, we can practice flexibility in how they access materials and in how they turn in assignments. So we hope this is a step in the right direction towards flipping your classroom. It's been a long time coming, and we know this is one way to improve equity for our students.